Welcome to Magnificat TV's news program dedicated to providing news of the church. It's Wednesday, June 14, 2023, and here are our news. The Pope has undergone a new operation on his colon to cure him of an intestinal obstruction. The operation went well and he is recovering favorably. More than 50,000 Nigerian Christians have been killed by Muslims in recent years, causing the exodus of 8 million people. The Bishop of Augsburg in Germany has decided that anyone who wants to receive communion may do so without any restrictions. A group of Methodist congregations in the United States have separated from that church because they do not accept the legitimacy of blessing gay couples. The Pope has undergone successful surgery for an intestinal obstruction and is recovering well, according to the reports of the surgeon who operated on him.
The laparotomy and plastic surgery of the abdominal wall was prosthesis that Pope Francis underwent in early afternoon of June 7 at the Gemelli Polyclinic Hospital was without complication and lasted 3 hours. The spokesman of the Holy See explained that the operation arranged by the Pope's medical team had become necessary because of the incarcerated incisional hernia that causes painful and worsening symptoms. The decision was taken after the CAT scan he underwent during the examination he had Tuesday at the same Gemelli Hospital where he had the surgery. The operation was performed by Dr. Sergio Alfieri, director of the hospital's Department of Abdominal and Endocrine Metabolic Medical and Surgical Science. According to the medical report, during the operation, persistent adhesions were found between some medium intestinal loops and the parietal peritoneum, causing the aforementioned symptoms. Therefore, we proceed to release the adhesions internal scars by completely distending all this intestinal tissue. Then, the medical report continues, the hernia repair was performed by means and plastic surgery of the abdominal wall using the prosthetic mesh. The operation and general anesthesia were performed without complications. The Holy Father responded well. Subsequent medical reports indicate that the Pope is recovering well, although all of the Pope's audiences have been suspended until the 18th. The planned trip to Lisbon and Mongolia remain on schedule.
The persecution of Christians in Nigeria continues unabated. Another priest was killed this week and more than 50,000 have already died at the hands of the Muslims.
A Nigerian priest was murdered in Nigeria this week. He was a young priest recently ordained. This further adds to a list of priests kidnapped and murdered by Muslims in that country. Inter-Society, a human rights organization based in Nigeria, has denounced a genocide of Christians that has been going on in that Africa country for more than 10 years. According to its April 10 report, 52,250 Christians have been massacred since 2009, and the number of murders is increasing with each passing year. In the first 100 days of this year, no less than 1,041 defenseless Christians were shot by Nigerian jihadists. About 15 to 20% of the massacres are the work of Nigerian security forces, especially the army. Since 2009, 18,000 churches and 2,200 Christian schools have been attacked, many of them destroyed, razed, or burned. As a result, no fewer than 50 million Christians, mostly in northern Nigeria, face serious threats from jihadis because they profess to be Christians. No fewer than 14 million of them have been uprooted and 8 million have been forced to flee their homes to avoid being shot. The Inter-Society report makes it clear the jihadists' goal is to cleanse Nigeria of any kind of Christians' presence. Christian homes, churches, and settlements have been destroyed and replaced by Muslims' mosques and settlements. The jihadists in Nigeria was launched by Islams in the northern Nigeria led by the Fulani ethnic group. What Obama has done to Nigeria by founding and supporting President Muhammad Buhari in the 2015 election, it is the root of these killings, the NGO said. Apparently, black lives did not matter to the mainstream media and politicians, especially when it comes to Christians being slandered by Muslims.
According to the decision of the Bishop of Augsburg, all who wish to receive communion may do so regardless of any legal or moral considerations.
In keeping with the usual heterodoxy of majority of the German episcopate, the Bishop of Augsburg, Monsignor Bertram Meyer, used the pulpit of his cathedral on the date of Corpus Christi to contradict what Scripture, tradition, and the magisterium of the Church teach about the disposition of the faithful when it comes to being able to receive communion. Bishop Bertram Meyer of Augsburg has spoken against communion exclusions. In discussions about diversity and sexual orientation, we fall short if we want to decide who can receive communion and who cannot, Meyer said at the Corpus Christi Mass in Augsburg Cathedral. Let us not deny communion to anyone who asks for it, he said. Meyer added that wanting to stay in one's own circle, it is not an Eucharistic lifestyle. Our position before the Lord is to get out to the bunker mentality and open up, the bishop added. What the Pope repeats should also be a rule. Let us not set ourselves up as judge of others. We are not gatekeepers to the banquet hall of the Eucharist, but vital protectors to the meal that the Lord prepares for all who hunger for it.
A new group of Methodist congregations has decided to leave the church in protest over its acceptance of blessings for gay couples.
60 Methodist congregations in Michigan have withdrawn their affiliation with the United Methodist Church, joining thousands of congregations that have left official Methodists in recent years. The reason is a disagreement over the morality of homosexual relationships. After the annual conference of the Michigan United Methodist Church, held at the Grand Traverse Resorts in Acme, Michigan, the regional body approved the departure of 5 those congregations. In recent years, the United Methodist Church has been embroiled in the debate over whether to change its policy set forth in the Book of Discipline that prohibits the blessing of the same-sex union and the ordinations of non-celibate clergy. Although efforts to amend the Book of Discipline during General Conference have consistently failed, liberal progressives with the WBU have often refused to follow or enforce the rules. In response, thousands of conservative congregations have disaffiliated in the past 2 years, and many congregations have chosen to join newly formed World Methodist Church. As of Tuesday morning, more than 4,600 congregations have left the UMC since 2019, according to figures compiled by UM News, and more than 2,000 have left so far this year.
Our editorial this week is dedicated to commenting on the attacks suffered by Christians in African countries such as Nigeria. or in the Americas such as Nicaragua.
This week, Pope Francis underwent surgery for a colon problem. Thank God the operation went well and the Pope is recovering satisfactorily. On this occasion, for the first time, it was the surgeon himself who gave explanations about what the Pope has, what he was operated on, not only this time but also what he was operating on he himself the previous time. This is a very positive act, because a press release without the signature of the doctor is not the same as the surgeon himself saying what is going on. He has cleared up a great many doubts. I think he has cleared up all the doubts. In the first place, he has explained what this operation consisted of, and has said that the patient is reasonably well. But he has also said that the patient does not have any malignant tumor, and this was a rumor that was widely circulating in the Vatican environment, that he does not have it and that he did not have it either. He even said that in the first operation, almost 2 years ago, he did not have any problem with the anesthesia, and it had been the pontiff himself in a conversation with journalists who had said informally that he was afraid of the anesthesia because he had had some difficulty in that operation. The surgeon, the doctor, has made it clear that the Pope is quite well, reasonably well for his 88 years of age, and that after a few years of natural and logical rest, he will be able to face the obligations he has contracted, obligations that the Vatican has said that it will keep. The visit to Lisbon for WYD, an even much heavier, logistically complex visit to Mongolia on the borders with China. However, in these days, the audiences have been suspended so that this recovery, as it is natural, can be completed satisfactorily. Another news item this week was the persecution of Christians, especially in 2 countries on 2 different continents, Nigeria and Nicaragua. The situation in Nigeria is really serious for Christians. An NGO dedicated to the defense of human rights, Inner Society, has given data. It had said that in the last 12 years, 52,500 Christians have been killed. It should be said that in many cases, they have been martyred, and that only in the first 3 months of this year, more than 1,000 Christians have been killed, martyred. 1,041 Christians. This means that in 90 days, more than 1,000 have been martyred, which represents more than 10 martyr victims per day. And it continues giving more data. It said that in the last 12 years, which is when the NGO presented the balance sheet, 22,000 churches have been attacked. More than 2,000 Christian schools and colleges have been attacked, many of them destroyed. And what does the government do? The government either does nothing or even favors the attacks. The government, which is Muslim, even the former president, who has just left office very recently, is of the same ethnic group, the Fulani ethnic group, which is the main ethnic group attacking Christians in the north of the country. An ethnic group supported, of course, by the terrorist group Boko Haram, to the point, says Inner Society, that 20% of the attacks against Christians have been carried out by the members of the army which is also mostly composed of Muslims. There are 50 million Christians at permanent risk in Nigeria, the most populous country in all of Africa. 8 million Christians have had to abandon their homes, leaving everything behind, and somehow getting to refugee camps where they survive with practically nothing. And what does the world do in the face of all of this? Well, it is terrible, because none of the other than the Obama administration and the current Biden administration have collaborated with the former Fulani, that is, that former Muslim president. Do they not realize that if the Islamic Jihad is established in Nigeria, what do they intend to do? to set up a Muslim sultanate in that country? If an Islamist country is installed there, then it will be much worse for the West. They are looking for short-term economic gain and do not give a damn about what Christians are suffering. And it is significant that these same people, when some African Americans were brutally beaten and even killed by police forces, these same people who are crying fool and joining Black Lives Matter movement, that they are protested? Rightly so. I am not going to discuss whether it is something chronic among the American police or specific cases, but the fact is that those who protest the deaths of African Americans at the hands of the police in the United States are not at all concerned about the death of more than 50,000 Africans of the same skin color as those in the United States. Not those. Those don't matter at all. If one falls in the United States, it is a catastrophe and they protest. And I think it is right to protest. But if 50,000 are killed in Africa, absolutely nothing happens. And even those who protest in the United States collaborate. I'm talking about the politicians. Collaborate even indirectly with the killing of Christians in Africa. And why is that? Because they are Africans or because they are Christians? Would it be the same if the 50,000 victims, many of them martyrs because they were killed out of hatred for their faith, the Fulani enter or the Boko Haram enter the villages, killing everybody, shouting Allah is great? Would it be the same if it were another religion? Or is it because of the fact I insist that they are Christians? The other case comes from Nicaragua. The dictatorial Sanidista regime of Ortega, this week amongst the continuous things with which attacks the church, has said that he has discovered that at least some dioceses among of the Managua are involved in money laundering. And he says he has discovered $500,000 in some sacks in the searches of the diocese he has carried out. What he does not say is that the money is legally accounted for, and that this money comes from the aid of an organization supported by the United States Episcopal Conference has sent to the Church of Nicaragua so that it can survive in the face of the harassment it is suffering from the communist regime. Ortega has kept the money. He has said that it has been money laundering what it is, I insist, legally accounted for. He has kept the money and we don't know where it will end up, but it is possibly that it will end up in an account in Switzerland. Why this tolerance of the world in the face of what is happening in Nicaragua, where not only the Catholic Church, but in all the churches are being attacked? Why this tolerance? Why this indifference to what is happening there? Why is Monsignor Alvarez still being tortured in jail? And why with him several priests are also imprisoned and others have been deported? Why is this allowed? Why are this killing of Christians in Africa allowed? Why? Because they are Christians, or because in addition to being Christians, they're Africans or Latinos? Is that the cause? Perhaps those who pull the strings of the world, we don't know how long it will take for them to cut off our ability to speak. Perhaps those who pull the strings of the world are even happy because the more people die, the more savings for them. And so they will not have to kill them because they have made a decision that half of us in the world are unnecessary. And I say unnecessary because being a Christian, I am included in the group of those who, according to those in charge, are unnecessary. They have no faith. It is evident. But that is their problem. Because although they believe that God does not exist, God does exist. When I read these things, when I hear about these massacres, or the persecution that is taking place in Nicaragua, and not only there, but because not only in Nigeria or Nicaragua there are these persecutions, but it also thinks what happened in Egypt. In those words that Moses hears from Yahweh, that Yahweh says to Moses when he says, "The cry of my people has reached my ears," the cry of the innocent and persecuted people, the tears of the children of God, reach the ears of the Lord, who is not indifferent. And not only because blessed are you who are persecuted for my sake, for yours is the kingdom of heaven. Not only for the kingdom of heaven, but also here on earth. Let us pray for the victims. Let us pray for all these martyrs of today who are so bravely confessing their faith, losing everything, even losing their lives. And may God forgive the guilty, who even dare to kill, to murder, invoking the name of God. May God also forgive those who collaborate with them, because even if they make a lot of money, it is blood money. Until next week, God willing.
We will continue to keep you informed of what is happening in the church, but you could do so on your own, consulting our webpage www.magnificat.tv. See you next week, God willing.